Hello and welcome to another Stamp with Amy K Facebook Live, and today I'm going to show you how I made a card with the Vintage Tools stamp set and the He's All That stamp set bundle. It's a Father's Day card, so wanted it to be a little more on the masculine side as opposed to the usual flowers and things that I often post. Again, like I said, I'm just going to show you how I made this, and it's nothing like super difficult or earth-shattering, but I did want to show you how I did the background. I actually put all the images except for the little clamp image onto one block, and that made for easy stamping on the background. So I'm going to show you really quickly how I did that, and then again the rest is just a little layering, a little die cutting, a little embossing, and it's going to be done. All right, so this is the card we're making today. We used the Vintage Tools stamp set, which is one of those that is in the new annual catalog, and it's got some really cool like old-timey woodworking type tools with it. We have a whole shed full of these in the backyard. And so I'm familiar with the looks of all these. I don't know all the names of them. I probably should know them better than I do, but I don't. So hey, Donna and Julie, thanks for hopping on. So again, I know the hammer and the pliers. I think this is a planer. Somebody could correct me if I'm wrong. I know it's a clamp and a screwdriver. And this thing, I feel like it's used, I don't know what the term is for, but I feel like you take a hammer and you can notch things out with it in wood. But again, I don't know all the names of the tools. So, hey, Karen, watching and weeding. I like it. Yeah, hopefully, you're not sweating to death. Although it's not too hot. It's a little overcast today and looking like it's going to possibly rain. So, the other thing today is, hey, Karen, glad you're joining today too. Couple other things that I used on this. I did use pretty much everything from the He's the Man suite as well. So I used the He's All That stamp set for the sentiments on here. And I used the dies for okay, hopefully I'm back. Sorry, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden it was like my phone lost the signal. So I'm hoping that I'm back and I'm good. Chisel. Okay, that's probably right, Karen. So hey, Kate and Suzanne, thanks for hopping on. Like I said, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden the phone just started twirling, and anyway. All right, so the He's All That stamp set bundle, and these are the All That dies. Use those to cut out the sentiment and cut out the little banners. And what else did I do? I think that's about all. Oh, and then I used the He's the Man Designer Series paper and the rustic metallic dots that are all in that He's the Man suite. So you might as well just go ahead and get the whole suite, because then you won't be sad you don't have it. So, all right, a couple things before I get going. The Kits collection by Stampin' Up. They're doing a buy one, get one for 50% off starting the 1st of June. So this will be running through the entire month of June. One little cool thing about it is you get the 50% off the more expensive of the two kits. So yay for that. That doesn't happen very often on a buy one, get one sale. But again, this is starting on June 1st. The details will be posted on my blog. They're on my blog today, but they'll be on it again tomorrow when I post all the details for this card. So you'll be able to take a peek at that as well. And then Stampin' Up! Has got their awesome starter kit promotion that's actually almost done. We've only got about another week left of this, where if you join as a demonstrator during the month of May, you get $66.50 worth of free in-color merchandise that is absolutely beautiful. I love the new in colors. You get all that for free with your starter kit. So you pay $99 plus tax if that applies in your area. You get free shipping. You get a free paper pumpkin kit. You get to pick $125 worth of Stampin' Up! Merchandise of your choice. Stampin' Up! Is going to throw in the in-color items. You're going to get a business pack, which has got some catalogs and things in it, business-related things. And if I didn't say it, free shipping. Yay. So it's a great deal. There is no obligation to buy or sell anything beyond the starter kit. So definitely you can hop in and give it a try and see how you like it. And I realized I totally forgot my liquid glue, so I will hop off. 1 second. Hold on. Went to go glue this together and realized I didn't have the glue. So there we go. Good thing it was close by. All right. So it's a great deal. If you are not a demonstrator, feel free to reach out and let me know. I'd love to have you join our team. We've got a team of mostly people who are just in it for the discount for themselves, and they love to stamp. So anyhow, let me know if you have questions about it. Let's get started. So I have got a Cajun Craze, I almost said crumb cake, and that it would have been the way our own color. Cajun Craze card base. This is cut to 5.5 by 8.5 and scored in the middle at 4.25. And I have a piece of the He's the Man Designer Series, Specialty Designer Series paper. And this one is cut to about 4.25 by 5.5, so it should fit over the entire card front. So I don't know if I said hey to Kay. Thanks for hopping on. And Lori is here as well, so I appreciate you joining today. And I'm using multi-purpose liquid glue, and I'm just going to put that all over the edges of the card front, a little bit in the middle. I generally don't use liquid glue a whole lot just because I tend to make a mess with it. But for things like this one, I'm going to be gluing an entire card front on. I usually use it for that just because it gives me a little second to wiggle stuff around and make sure that everything is on and straight before it's stuck down for good. All right, so we've got that part done. Next up, let me show you how I did the... where it is, I lost my stamp set. How I arranged the tools on the block. So this is the E block. So it's the E block. It's not the big giant one. It's like the second giant block, if that makes sense. So it's the second largest one that Stampin' Up! Has. And I started with the hammer image first. And I basically put that down and tried to get it relatively straight. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect because it's a stamped image and nobody's going to be, calibrating things, whatever. And then I took the little planer thing, which again, I think this is the planer. And then I set that down basically right next to it. And then I took the pliers and I put that down right over here and tried to just wiggle it in and fit it in around the other tools. And then I took the little screwdriver and I put that up here. And then I took the little chisel, thank you, Karen, for the words, and I put that right next to the hammer. So basically I tried to make it look a little bit square-ish and so that it would fit on the block, which I think it will. And then I just smooshed it down on the block all together. And then the other thing, I'm totally unprepared today. The other one that I used on here is the clamp, and I forgot to grab the block for that, so hang on, let me get another block. Good thing I have things mostly close by. All right, so we've got the little clamp here on a separate block. That one I used as sort of my fill-in image for anything, if I couldn't get it to be squared on the little panel that I was using, I used the clamp to kind of fill in a space here and there. So you work in the hardware store, I should have known to ask you. All right, so I've got everything set up here on my block, and then I've got Early Espresso ink. And because these are all from the same stamp set and all of the same type of stamp, we should be able to ink everything all at once and stamp it all at once. I'll try not to bang the camera around too much as I do that. But again, it's Early Espresso ink. And then I'm just going to take this, and I actually started a little bit lower down on my other one. So I'm going to do the same thing on this one to get it to look similar. I don't know that they're going to turn out exactly the same. And then we're just going to stamp this on the panel. All right. I added in the little clamp up here at the top. Again, just in Early Espresso ink. Stuck that in up here. And then I came back in again with the bigger set of tools on the block and stamped. Whoop, I just stuck my fingers right in that one. That's not a good plan, Amy. No, I've got ink everywhere. Hey, Barbara, thanks for joining. And then I kind of lined it up here again. It doesn't have to be perfect just because, again, it's just a backgroundy look. That was what I was going for. Came over here and stamped that. And then inked it up one more time. And stamped it over this edge as well. All right. So again, pretty simple so far. Just kind of wanted to give it the, background look and put everything all in one block. I thought about putting each one on an individual block, and then I thought, I think it's going to be easier to line things up and get it to be relatively straight if I just put it all on one block and stamp like that, and it worked pretty well for me. So hopefully that will work just as well for you. I have got a piece of Early Espresso cardstock. This is cut to 4 by 5.25. And again, all the measurements and things will be on my blog tomorrow, so no need to worry about writing everything down or trying to remember it. I will link up the blog post in this video description as soon as it goes live tomorrow morning around 8 o'clock Eastern time. So I'm putting a little Stampin' Seal on the panel, and I'm trying to not, for whatever reason, some of the darker inks take a minute longer to dry, so I'm trying not to set the ink on top of the ink because I'm afraid I will smear it if I do that. So trying to not do that. Hey Pam, thanks so much. You could definitely use the Stamparatus for stamping it as well, but because of the size of the panel that I was using, I wasn't sure that it would work as well because you'd have to really be aware and probably be moving your paper around quite a bit and moving the plates up and down and things. So I thought it would be easier just to put it on one block and stamp it with one block. But you definitely could put it on the Stamparatus. You just kind of will have to, again, maneuver your paper around up and down and maneuver the plate up and down so that you get everything stamped where you want it to be. But yep, you could definitely do that, Ruth Ann. So, all right, so then I'm going to adhere this to the Early Espresso panel. And again, I'm trying to line it up so that it's even along the top. And then I have got a little piece of the He's the Man Designer Series paper. And this is cut to about 1 inch by about 5 1/8. And I don't know if I said anything. This is the Sahara Sand panel. I probably didn't even tell you what I was stamping it on. Sahara Sand cardstock that I stamped it on in Early Espresso ink. This panel is cut to about 3 1/8 by 5 1/8. So hopefully that will give you the general measurements on it. And then I'm going to take this panel and try to line it up here on the edges. And again, line it up so that it's fairly even all the way around. That's my goal with it. It may not work perfectly, but I think we're pretty close on that. And then I've got a little piece of the He's the Man Designer Series paper that I'm going to lay right over the center of it so that it'll cover the seam in the paper. So if you end up having papers and they don't match up perfectly in the middle, adding another little strip of it to make it look like, I don't know, it almost looks like ribbon across it is a good idea to help hide it, to hide any little oopsies where you maybe didn't cut it exactly correctly. And that happens with me fairly often, so I've learned lots of little tricks to hide things like that. So, all right, and I've got a little glooby edge here that I'm trying to wipe off with my finger before I end up with everything stuck to me and to the card front. And then I'm just going to take this and we're going to set it up here fairly close to the top of that piece of Designer Series paper. And I'm kind of using the pattern on the paper to hopefully get it stuck down here correctly and straight on the card front. Hey, Nyoka, thanks for hopping in. Hey, Karen, glad you're here. And Linda's here as well from Idaho. Thanks for joining. Now I've got a glob of adhesive on here. I'm a mess today. Okay, so that is it for the main card front panel. I'm going to bring the card base back in and take a couple Stampin' Dimensionals, and we're just going to adhere the card front and the front panel together. Again, just with my little, these are my half Stampin' Dimensionals that I like to use. Everybody has their own preference on whether they love them or hate them. My theory is that once you try them, you'll love them and you'll never go back to using whole Stampin' Dimensionals again. But that's just my own theory. I love them. Not everyone does. And you can certainly use whole ones if you prefer to do that. I don't know, cheap, and I like the way they fit better actually on many things. So all right, so there we go, got most of the card front done. The next thing that I did was a little bit of stamping with on Early Espresso cardstock, and we're going to heat emboss. So I've got the sentiment from the, let me pull out the stamp set here. He's All That stamp set. This is one of the new ones from the current annual catalog, and it's got a coordinating set of dies that go with it. So I've got the sentiment on the block here, and I'm going to use Versamark ink, and we're just going to ink up the stamp and hopefully get a good solid inking on it. And we'll stamp it here on a piece of Early Espresso cardstock. Hopefully I won't regret turning that piece of cardstock this way. We can always restamp it if it turns out terribly. All right, and then I have got gold embossing powder, and I know this is kind of gonna get kind of close to the screen, so sorry. I have a little taller container for this one than I do most of my other embossing powders. But I've got gold embossing powder in here from the Metallics embossing powders pack, and just sprinkled that heavily over the top of my stamp sentiment, and then kind of flicked off to get all the extra little pieces that I don't want there anymore off. And I'm going to set this aside and hopefully not spill that. All right, then I have got my Stampin' Up! Heat tool here. So the been wanting to learn this. All right, well, cool. I'm glad that you're liking it. So it is a great stamp set, Jackie. I love it too. So all right, so I've got the Stampin' Up! Heat tool. It has 2 settings on it. There's a level 1 setting, which is for drying, so that's a little bit cooler. You can use it for things like watercoloring, something that you want to speed up the drying process a little bit on it. And the level 2 setting, which is for heat embossing, so that one's definitely hotter than the other one is. So I'm just giving the heat tool a second to heat up here while I'm yapping and carrying on. And then I'm going to point it here at my sentiment, and when it starts to turn shiny and smooth, then you know that it's done. You don't want to overcook your embossing powder because you can actually burn it. And yes, the way that you learn that is that you do it. And I can guarantee you if you emboss, you will do it at some point. So, all right, so that is it. I'm giving this a second to cool off. Again, that's one of those things with embossing powders. It is a kind of a plastic material, and if you touch it right away after you've finished heat embossing it, you will smear it more than likely. So if you let it cool down for just a second, then it will work perfectly. So, all right, so I have got the more rectangular looking die from the I'm going to call them the wrong thing, All That dies, which again coordinates with the He's All That stamp set. And I'm just going to run this through the die cutting machine over here off to my left, so I'll be off screen for 1 second. I know embossing is always like the best thing to watch. It's just like magic. So, all right, hopefully y'all are enjoying your day. We're kind of counting down to the end of the school year here. I have one daughter that gets done on the 10th of June, and the other one isn't until like the 22nd or 23rd, so it's kind of weird that they're so far apart, but they are. All right, one cool thing about this set of dies, which I probably didn't talk about earlier, is that the ones that cut out the sentiments, well, actually this one too, no, that cuts out the sentiment, but your sentiment dies on here, actually they cut and then they emboss as well. So all of them have a little embossed edge on them, which hopefully, let me hold this up a little closer and I'll kind of tilt it around. Hopefully you can see it on the screen. If not, you'll see it tomorrow when I post my card, but it leaves a really pretty nice, I shouldn't say pretty on a manly set, but it leaves a nice embossed edge along the die cut, which I love. So, all right, so I've got that, and I'm going to take another couple of my little Stampin' dimensionals, my chopped up half Stampin' dimensionals. How do you get the extra specks of powder off the paper? Well, how I do it is I sprinkle it generously, and then I take my cardstock and I flick it, like not kindly. I give it a pretty good whack when I flick it, and that usually gets rid of all the little extra pieces. However, if you do have little flecks that are left on there, you can take a little paintbrush or something like that and wipe them off. The other thing that I have found is if it's just one little fleck that is causing you trouble, hold on, let me stick this down before I forget before I get talking and get this all messed up on here. One other thing that I do with it a lot of times is this has a very pointy edge on it. So if I have a little piece of embossing powder that's maybe stuck right here, I will take the edge of my snips and kind of just go in and grab it out like that. Just give it a quick touch, and that usually moves it right out of the way for me. So that's one of the little tricks that I learned. And just anything that you have that's got a little pointy edge on it like that, you can pretty easily take it and do something like that with it. So my husband has all these tools too. He's a woodworking person. His grandfather actually was a boat builder, and we inherited all of his tools when he passed away. And so we have a lot of woodworking tools in our garage here at our house. So I'm very familiar with them. Again, I don't know all the names. I do know how you use most of them, but I don't know the names of them because I'm not very good at keeping track of all that stuff. So, all right, so I'm using, and I forgot. See, I started talking and I didn't even tell you what I was doing. So I had used, ahead of time, I cut a piece of the He's All That Designer Series paper with the little double banner die from the All That dies, and I got 2 of these cute little banners. So your husband does too? Okay, so I'm glad mine's not the only one with a whole garage full of stuff. So, and then there's always more that seems to arrive as well. So anyhow, so I've got a couple of these banners cut, and I can tell that I'm running into the dimensional that's in the center of my card, so it's not giving me as much wiggle room as I want. So I'm just gonna kindly take the banner and chop it off. I don't want to chop it too short, which I didn't, I didn't have to chop very much of it off, but I just did snip a little off the end so that I can slide it underneath the sentiment here. And I'm probably going to go ahead and do the same thing on this one, just snip it off so that I've got a little more wiggle room to slide it under as I say that and run into the edge of the sentiment. And I'm going to take this one and just sort of stack it up here on top of the other one. Whoop, that's not at all straight. Good thing I checked it before smooshing it down. All right, so there we go. Got those two on. And then the last thing I added on the card front was just a couple of the rustic metallic adhesive back dots. And for this card, the original one, I put 2 of the larger and 1 of the smaller. You can sort of put them on whatever your preferred way is, whether you like the bigger ones, the smaller ones, a mix of the two. I did a little mix of the two. I find that I tend to use the small of whatever it is for embellishments a ton, and the bigger ones, sometimes I end up with a whole sheet full of the big ones. So anyway, but this one I thought could use the bigger ones, and they almost look like little nail heads to me on here. So I thought it worked perfectly with the vintage tools look. So that's it for the card front. On the inside of the card, again, I kept it pretty simple, which I try to do, and I'm going to set these way aside because I'm going to do a little big stamping on here. A little big stamping, does that make sense? A little bit of stamping with the bigger image on here is what I meant to say. So I want to make sure I don't catch the edge of my card with the inked stamps. So I'm going to take this image again, and we're just going to use Early Espresso ink. I've got basic white cardstock underneath, and it measures 4 by 5 1/4, so it should fit nicely inside my card base. And I'm just going to ink up the tools, and then we are going to take them and we're going to line them up sort of along the edge here. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect, but just line them up and stamp the tools along the edge of the paper. And then I'm going to grab my little clamp image, and we're going to stamp that one down here because again, like I said, that's kind of my fill-in image for things where it doesn't quite fit right. So then I've got the sentiment from the He's the Man stamp set. Is that the right name for it? He's All That. They need to change the names of the the paper, between the paper and the dies and the stamp set. They all have kind of the same name, but not quite the same name, and I keep calling them all the wrong things. So this is from the He's All That stamp set. And again, it's just the Wishing You a Happy Father's Day sentiment. And I'm going to set this aside and give it just 1 second facing upright so that hopefully I don't smear any of this in the ink. And I'm actually going to add my adhesive to the card base rather than flipping it over and putting it on the back of the panel that I have just stamped. Again, just because sometimes the darker inks and I end up in a disagreement about whether they are dry or not, and then I end up smearing them if I flip them over and start spinning them around on my paper. So there we go. Just going to take that and I'm going to press in between all the little tools, and that's it for the inside of the card. So just going to fold this closed. I cannot keep, I knew I was going to do it, and I actually have the catalog open and next to me, and I still keep calling them all the wrong things. So, I don't know. Too many that are the same. So that is it for my card today. So hopefully you like it, and you definitely just get both of the sets because they work hand in hand together, and you're going to love them, especially if you have somebody in your life that does woodworking. They're really cool tools. I mean, they're, like I said, I think they're really cool. So let's see. Karen left us have many of this, and I'll chisel it. Yep. Oh, cool. So you've got a whole pile of them as well. So nice. All right. Oh, thanks. I'm glad that you enjoyed the cards, and thanks for being here. I appreciate you all joining me today. I will plan to be live on my YouTube channel around 2 o'clock Eastern Time on Friday, and then back here live again around 2 o'clock Eastern Time on Tuesday. So enjoy your week. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful holiday weekend if you're celebrating this weekend. I kind of forgot it's Memorial Day already. So anyway, so if you are doing anything fun, enjoy it. Be safe. Have a happy weekend, and we will chat soon.